Hello, my name is Shirley and I start my first day of classes for medical school tomorrow, so I figured now would be the perfect time to discuss my journey on how I got here. So for the first half of my life, I actually wanted to be an author or a teacher because I really enjoyed reading, writing, and education. In elementary school, I was bullied, so I turned to reading as a sort of escape. I obviously do not condone bullying. It took a toll on my social skills as well as my self-esteem. However, looking back, I am able to appreciate how it made me a much more empathetic person because I experienced such pain myself. And I also established a love for lifelong learning because I loved reading so much. In middle school, I took my first biology course and I fell in love with the way that I can imagine applying the lessons that I had learned in class to my actual life. For example, learning about how the body breaks down glucose, I would think about that whenever I ate. We often go about our daily lives focusing on the external world and what's happening around us, and I found it really fascinating how biology was the opposite in that it helped you hone your focus on your own body and what's literally happening inside. In high school, I volunteered as a candy striper, which was my first exposure to healthcare. However, due to my obvious lack of expertise and knowledge, I wasn't able to do much to help out, so I wouldn't say it had a huge impact on my desire to pursue medicine. It was also sometime in middle school or high school that I started watching the show House MD. Obviously, medicine on TV is different from medicine in real life. However, I liked the show a lot because I felt like it showed the investigative components of medicine, such as how you have to think about different organ systems working together, coming up with a diagnosis, and it's kind of like solving a puzzle. I still get excited whenever I learn about and understand a new medical concept because that's almost like a puzzle piece clicking in my own head. For example, I'm studying for the first day of classes tomorrow because we were given some lectures to go over beforehand, and sometimes studying just feels like studying. But other times, whenever I learn about a new complex topic or really fascinating fact, I get super excited. And I've gotten excited when I understand other topics too, such as psychology or math or computer science, but not nearly to the same degree. Now, medicine obviously consists of more fields than just biology and chemistry, but those are the two fields that I get most excited about when I learn about them. So that is how I reaffirmed that medicine is something I truly want to pursue. In terms of academics, I did put in effort throughout middle school and high school, but some concepts just came easily to me, so I didn't have to do a ton of studying. That changed when I got to college. I took advantage of the newfound independence since I was no longer living with my parents, and I didn't study as much as I should have. I got a D in my math course my freshman year because instead of studying, I would hang out with friends or stay up all night playing video games. At the end of my second year, I lost a close friend to suicide. That experience really emphasized the importance of mental health as well as social health, and it also made me question my life a lot. Like, did I want to continue staying up all night playing video games instead of studying? Did I want to continue to potentially jeopardize my future? What did it mean to be happy? It made me really think about what matters in life and also about what I wanted out of my own life. It was also around this time that I first learned about the physician assistant profession, also known as PAs, and for a while I decided I wanted to pursue that as a future career. However, after shadowing PAs, nurse practitioners, and both osteopathic and allopathic physicians, I decided that all of these professions are fantastic and they each contribute something different to the medical field. However, I decided that medical school, particularly MD programs, were most in line with what I saw for my future for reasons that I'll discuss in a future video. And then came my third year of college. My mediocre grades persisted until winter quarter of that year when I read a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which is still to this day my favorite nonfiction book of all time and one that I highly recommend to everyone. Using principles from that book, I was able to develop much better study habits as well as better lifestyle habits in general, and I was able to increase my GPA and really hone my work ethic. I'll elaborate upon this process in future videos about developing good study habits as well as how to get into medical school with a low GPA. It was also in college that I was finally able to get some hands-on patient care experience. I volunteered for a free clinic in Mexico where I was able to see the significant impact that healthcare has, especially for those that aren't able to afford it. It made me realize how important healthcare is, especially in underprivileged communities. It also got me interested in nutrition and prevention because many of the patients that we saw had high blood pressure and diabetes, which are highly correlated with diet and lifestyle. In terms of other clinical experience, I also worked as a home health caretaker for approximately 3 years. I would help my boss Chris, who is affected with quadriplegia, get ready for bed. The job was beneficial in the sense that it helped normalize bodily functions for me because I would help him brush his teeth, replace his urine bag, etc. Being able to establish that connection over a long period of time also reinforced my desire to go into medicine because it was a more personal and long-lasting connection. Since I saw him at least once or twice a week in the 3 years that I worked for him, I got to know Chris and his wife Jean fairly well, and vice versa. It of course depends on the specialty, but as a physician, you're not only able to help patients, but you're also able to potentially form a connection with them that lasts over the course of years and decades, and you can see their progress as you age together, which is something that's really quite special. Additionally, I served as a CPR/BLS instructor. This was partially inspired by that friend that passed away. I wasn't able to prevent his death, but I decided that I could learn to prevent future deaths, both physically through CPR, as well as learning to become a doctor, as well as mentally by providing a source of support for people that are going through a tough time. Although this position did not involve patient care, I really liked the teaching component. As a physician, you have to be able to boil down complex topics into everyday terms that patients are able to understand so that they can make an informed decision about their own body and health. It also tied back into my childhood dream of becoming a teacher because although that's very different from being a doctor, both of them involve educational components. After graduation, I took some time off to enhance my medical school application. This is when the work ethic that I had cultivated during my last half of college really came in handy. The 6 months leading up to the MCAT, I was working full-time as a medical assistant, part-time as a home health caretaker, and I was also retaking classes for general chemistry as well as organic chemistry, both with lab. So from Monday to Friday, I was busy from essentially 8 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m., either with class or with work, and then on the weekends is when I finally had time to study for the MCAT. I obviously do not recommend this schedule to anyone, and the only reason I went through with it was because I knew it was temporary. But for those of you who are going through a similar workload, I do hope that someday you'll also be able to look back and see that all of your hard work had paid off. As I mentioned, I did work as a back office medical assistant for approximately a year and a half. It was my first full-time job, and I learned a lot, not just about patient care, but also about clinical skills, about teamwork, about developing my bedside manner. It also made the concept of medicine that much more realistic because before that, I had a somewhat idealistic perspective of healthcare, but that quickly disappeared the first time I had some patients yell at me for something that was not my fault whatsoever. I lost that naivete, but I did gain a greater sense of empathy, as well as a better and more realistic understanding of what medicine entails. I mean, it wasn't right that those patients were taking the frustrations out on me, but I had to remember that I was seeing them at a very vulnerable time in their lives when they're not feeling well, and that they're coming to our clinic and trusting the physician to help them is, in a sense, a privilege. It is an honor to know that I could help someone who's potentially a complete stranger at one of the lowest points of their lives, and that really helped me put things in perspective. I've of course also had patients that were extremely appreciative, and they expressed their sincere gratitude for what I was able to help them with, and that was nice because it also allowed me to see the positive impact that I can make. As a medical assistant, I also learned about how many factors go into medicine. I used to think that medicine was mainly about patient care and talking to and treating patients. However, I learned about the many different components that also play a role. For example, insurance and pre-authorizations are a huge part, and it's not enough to simply prescribe a medication if it's not covered by a patient's insurance. There are also lots of administrative tasks, billing, charting, etc. Overall, I really appreciate my experience as a medical assistant because not only was I able to learn a lot, but I was also able to gain a better understanding of what it means to be a doctor since I was around physicians all the time, and I also gained a better and more realistic understanding of medicine, which is good because if I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to this profession, then it's best that I base this decision on what medicine actually is as opposed to some rose-tinted glasses version of it. I also took another gap year just to apply to medical schools and get other life experiences. For instance, I traveled to Washington and Canada with my family. I worked part-time as a waitress, a tutor, and a photo booth attendant, and I started this YouTube channel. Fast forward to today, and I've had online orientation these past 2 weeks. We went over the usual introductions, trainings, overview of curriculum, etc., and I start classes tomorrow. So the accumulation of all the aforementioned experiences are what helped me decide that medicine is the career that I want to pursue. It combines my love for lifelong learning with my interest in the sciences, as well as my desire to help and form a connection with others. And I love that medicine is both a science and an art. Yes, you have to understand and memorize different medical concepts, but you also have to know how to apply those concepts in a clinical setting, and you have to do so while interacting with patients in a compassionate and informative manner. Alright, thanks for listening to my pre-med journey. I will have a video out soon soon regarding my first day as well as my first week in medical school. So I'll see you sometime next week as well as next Sunday. Until then, I surely hope that you take care of your health.